How would you like to come home to a bartender who will fix you any cocktail you want?
I'll have an old-fashioned.
I'll have a margarita.
Now you can with the Bartesian Home Cocktail Maker. Bartesian is a sleek machine the size of a coffee maker that makes premium cocktails at the touch of a button. Choose from over 50 different cocktails, from classics to the most exotic premium cocktails served in the best bars today. You'll always get freshly mixed, perfectly balanced cocktails with the Bartesian Cocktail Maker. And now get Bartesian's best Black Friday deal ever at bartesian.com/cocktail. Entertaining? The Bartesian is ideal for parties. No need to stock all kinds of individual mixers for complicated recipes. Every guest gets the cocktail of their choice in seconds. The Bartesian makes a wonderful gift for anyone who loves a fine premium cocktail. Now get Bartesian's best Black Friday deal ever. It's available right now, only at bartesian.com/cocktail. That's BARTESIAN.com/cocktail for Bartesian's best deal ever. Only at bartesian.com/cocktail.
Well, shopping for a car?
Yep, Carvana made financing a car as smooth as can be.
Oh, yeah?
I got pre-qualified instantly and had real terms personalized just for me.
Doesn't get much smoother than that.
Well, I got to browse thousands of car options on Carvana, all within my budget.
Doesn't get much smoother than that.
It does. I actually wanted a car that seemed out of my range, but I was able to add a cosigner and found my dream car.
It doesn't get much...
Oh, it gets smoother. It's getting delivered tomorrow.
Visit Carvana.com or download the app to get pre-qualified today.
Times of old, in times of new, there's a guide to follow to make it through. It's the pop culture field manual.
What is going on, Pop Culture Field Manual family? Welcome back to another great episode of the PCFM podcast, which obviously, you all know, it sits right at that intersection of weapons, action, the military, and pop culture. We're excited because today we are talking all about movies and video games that involve being hunted. Just like in Rick and Morty and that little guy in, I think it's season 6, hunt me, somebody hunt me. That's exactly what we're going to do. Whether you are the hunter or you are the hunted, nobody is safe in this episode. So, right. Izzy, going into it, what are your thoughts about, hunters as far as, hunting man or hunting animals, or what opinions do you have about hunting?
Well, my favorite thing about the episode we're doing today is I love a good team movie or a team story or a team video game or whatever, where there's like a team of people that come together and they are, I especially love it when they're like specialists. Like they're kind of like an ODA. Like there's like the computer guy, and then there's like the front man, and then there's like maybe the heavy, or like the girl who's the ninja. Like Thundercat style. Everybody's got their own little special things about them, but they form a team. And I like seeing what creators do, like what the thought process is behind how they formulate their team, and like where they get their inspiration from. Because I feel like I don't know if they do this on purpose, but I feel like a lot of teams or a lot of hunters or pop culture that features hunters or teams of hunters, they get their inspiration from the military or or whatever. Because I just like that, the idea of like the specialists, like the guy he's good at this and he's good at that. And then it's always funny, like in some of the stuff are on the list today that I'm looking at. It's like they have this cool team, like in the beginning of the movie, and then they all get wiped out by somebody.
They just get
by the bad guy, and then it's just the main character left, or maybe one or two people, and then they have to come back and attack the bad guy and ultimately prevail. But I love there's some of the stuff is like man versus man hunting man. And then some of it's like man hunting monsters. And then, of course, there's the classic idea of like, they go in with this idea, they're hunting these things, but then they become the hunted, and they have to survive or whatever. Really a lot of good material, rife, target-rich environment, as they say, when it comes to teams hunting or movies or video games or whatever that have heavily featured like you're on a team, hunting something,
No, I got you. And I want to start off strong here with a movie that has gotten the notorious unwatchable title by me
Really?
I watched this one last night before recording this, and it is Monster Hunter from 2020.
Oh.
Yeah, based off the video game series. And let me tell you,
man.
but I want to start off this one just because it's very military strong.
Right.
Yeah, so like it starts off, first of all, it says you're on a joint special operations, unit, but that's kind of after you're in like what they call the new world, which is like the monster world.
Yeah.
And you see like this ship get attacked by like these, they call them Diablos, which are just giant sand, like swimming monsters. And then after like you realize this guy gets left behind on that boat, it cuts over to our world. And it shows like this joint special operations task force, which is being led by the woman actor from Resident Evil. What's her name?
Mila Jovovich.
Yeah,
as
Amelia.
Army Ranger Captain Natalie
Army
Artemis.
Ranger Captain.
Army
And
Ranger
let me
Captain.
tell you, she takes the concept of being a ranger and she just runs with it so fast. She has, so she's wearing a ranger scroll on her uniform. She's got a ranger tab on her other side, and then whatever unit like they're working in, they don't really elaborate on. And then she has a tattoo of the ranger designated unit insignia on her wrist. Like she's in the Humvee and you can see like the DUI right there. And then she also has a neck tattoo that says RLTW, which stands for Rangers Lead the Way, on her neck. And I'm like, oh my God.
She's super hua.
Yeah, she's super hua. And then like, first of all the individuals in the, like we're talking about like that team dynamic.
Yeah.
Like all the individuals in the team are like, you would never find these characters in like any type of special operations environment. Like they have like googly heads, like the bobbly heads on top of their Humvee. And then like some of the guys have like, they just look super young and like very immature, and like you're like, no way. And the costume design is absolutely terrible. And there's this one scene that I started busting out laughing. It's in the beginning. They're like driving along and she's in the turret of the Humvee. So first of all, they have like a Razor, which isn't actually like the Razors we use. It's just some side-by-side dune buggy with a 50 cal mounted to it. And that's one vehicle they're in. And then they're in a Humvee, and the Humvee's turret has a minigun on it. And like she is in the Humvee turret and she starts banging on the top like dune, 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 dune. And then obviously, who else is in this? It's Ice. No, it's not Ice-T. It's
T.I.
Let's see. T.I. Yeah, T.I.P. baby. T.I.'s in it, and he's a sniper. And he's like not carrying any of the right mags for his sniper rifle. And like he hears the beat and then he starts singing cadence. And they all start singing cadence. Like this is what we do in special operations. We just sing along to cadence. And they, she starts doing the beat. And what is the cadence? Oh my God. I started cracking up. It was like, they say that in the army, the pay is mighty fine. And everybody repeats it. They say that in the army, the pay is mighty fine. And then they go like, they pay $100 and take back 99. And they're all like, yeah. And I'm it is so bad. It is so bad. Like I put in my description here, I said, the only thing cool about the movie was like the monsters. Like the monster designs were pretty cool. But as far as whoever was the military advisor on this movie should be fired and put on a blacklist from ever doing any type of military movie again. They should be canceled, and they should also be hung because it was so bad on the military side.
Oh man.
Yeah, and then it was really funny because like she becomes the lone survivor because they go into the other world and they think they're still in like our world. And like they come across all these monsters, and first of all they're like shooting at the monster that's attacking them, and they first of all the minigun's rate of fire is like nowhere near what it should be.
It's lower
it's like
or higher?
It's so low. It's so low. Like they do it slow-mo and it's like a 50 cal. It's like boom, boom, boom. But this thing's supposed to be like brrr.
Yeah.
Like if it was slow-mo it'd be like still. And it was just like everything was off. Everything just didn't work. And oh man, it was just so bad on the military side. But yeah, she becomes the lone survivor and gets like captured by like these arachnid monsters. And then she like kind of gets out of the webbing and has to escape like the place, but she runs in the TIP, but he's been like infected with like, they laid eggs in his body. And like they're like, he's like, run, go. And like she managed to escape, but then she like basically fights the guy in the beginning of the movie.
Tony Jaa.
Yeah. But they don't speak the same language. And they're like, I mean, the fighting action is good, whatnot, but like, let's be honest. Like, she does get her ass kicked by the dude. But then, like, it's just back and forth between them. And then they're, like, sitting there, and she's, like, is looking. At one point in the movie, she's, like, looking at her Ranger tab. And she's, like, just staring at her Ranger tab. And it's, like, on Velcro. And he's, like, what is this? He's, like, points to her. She's, like, Ranger. I'm a Ranger. And he's, like, and she's, like, she, like, does finger guns. She's, like, pew, pew, pew. Ranger. And then he like does a bow and arrow kind of hand sign, and she's like, hunter. She's like, you're a hunter, I'm a ranger. I'm just sitting there like, this is so bad. The movie's terrible.
Who wrote this? Paul W. Sanderson. Yeah, Paul W. Sanderson, man, I think he did he did like Event Horizon. He's obviously a fan, right? Yeah, he did Event Horizon, and then he did Mortal Kombat, the first Mortal Kombat. He did Event Horizon. He did Soldier. Okay. And then he starts going into I guess he must have gotten to a place in his career where he had a bunch of clout so he could do things that he really wanted to do. So he started doing like video game adaptations and like property adaptations. Resident Evil, he did Aliens vs. Predator. He did Death Race in 2008, and then he did the other Resident Evil movies, plus the Three Musketeers movie, and the Pompeii movie, which was a disaster. So his track record has not been very good, in my opinion.
It's just really disappointed me, because like, you're looking at this movie and you can tell that they had a fat budget.
Yeah.
And they just refused to like use it properly. Because like I said, the movie's military heavy. Yeah. So if you're gonna do that, like, at least
dude. How many? So this was made in
2020.
What year? 2020. Okay, so how many veterans do you have in the industry at this point that could have consulted on this movie? Maybe they just maybe these Hollywood types, maybe they make a good showing of like, thank you for your service, but they don't actually know anybody that was in the military.
No.
They don't
like, they thought that like the military guys would love this one, but like, it ended up being the quite opposite. You can tell they did not spend any time like actually looking at it. It's just, they keep referring to their Law Rocket as an RPG. It's just so bad, dude. The movie's so bad.
Well, it's funny. It says it only had a production budget of $60 million. Here's the gripe that I have. And I can't remember. They've done this before, but they'll have an intellectual property and it's set in a fantasy world. Monster Hunter is a huge series. Like, it's a worldwide. I know people that play it. It's all they play. They're huge fans of every edition that comes out. They get it. They play it. And it's actually like this really fun, world where, you build up your character. You go fight these huge monsters and stuff. I don't know why they didn't go with the route of just immersing the audience in the world itself, like not going to the real world. I understand there's like the idea, like a plot device or a storytelling device where you have somebody, the audience has to know what's going on. They have to understand what's happening. So usually what they'll do is they'll have somebody who's not from that place or that culture or that world get teleported in, like Mila Jovovich's character, and so they get to see the world through their eyes. They get to learn about it as they're learning about it. But I don't understand. Maybe it was a budgetary thing, because it says $60 million is not $60 million is not a big budget for a movie these days. But why not just have it be in the world? Have those people who live in this world and they hunt monsters and they have a whole culture and a whole society, and I haven't seen the movie because I heard it sucked, but
because I mean, even on that thing, it looked to me like they had a lot of money to spend, but now knowing that they didn't, they should have just like went all in their world, right? But in the movie, they go back and forth. between like, you know, they do a big scene in our world where like, you know, they get engulfed in this giant storm which ignites these like pillars in the middle of, you know, the fucking desert wherever they're operating, which brings them to the new world. And like as they're fighting the final like monster, that they're going to like investigate this portal, and that's the whole point of like the beginning of the movie. Like that's where they were going, was to investigate this tower to figure out like the portal thing.
Yeah.
And everybody doesn't speak the language except Ron Perlman, who's like fluent in English. And she's like, why do you speak the language? And he's like, our ancestors or the old tribes, you know, used to go back and forth, and I, you know, committed my life to studying it. But like, there's no way that if they're teleporting into the Middle East, that they're, you know, learning English, you know?
Yeah.
So like you should be like fluent in like Pashto or Arabic or something, but he's like he's saying like very fancy words in English. So I'm like, no, that does not work. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
But then they teleport back to the real world, and like one of the monsters ends up going through the portal as well, and just takes out like a company-sized element of military.
Huh.
And like it's bad. It's all bad. Yeah. And it just ends abruptly too. Like the other hunters like end up going to our world and like help killing the beast that like transferred over, and then they go back to the other world, and there's another monster that's about to fight, and like literally the movie ends as they're all slow-mo jumping to the monster to kill it, and like it just ends.
Obviously, this was intended to be the start of a franchise, and it totally did not make a lot of money. No, I think it bombed at the box office.
Good.
Oh my gosh! Well, I'm looking at the wiki. The wiki says the film only grossed $44 million.
Oh, so it lost
worldwide.
a big chunk.
It
They lost about
money.
20 mil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess it had good visual effects, but not a very good story.
Yeah. So it definitely earned my unwatchable status. Don't waste your time or your money, especially if you have any type of military background. You will get so frustrated, and it's a laughable movie.
Oh man, Cameron, I have one more thing to say about this movie. I need your help, man. I have something that's been bothering me for a long time.
Sure.
It's a serious issue, and I need you to help me work through my deep emotional angst about something. There's an actor, Josh Hellman. He was in this movie. He was also in Mad Max. He's been in a bunch of stuff, and I'm telling you, he looks exactly like another actor named Seann William Scott. Do you know who Seann William Scott is?
I'm looking it up right now.
Seann William Scott is an actor. He's a bit of an older actor. You know, he hasn't done much in a while, but he was in American
Oh my
Pie.
God! Oh yeah.
I'm telling
I know
you,
this.
am I the only one? Am I going crazy here, or does Seann William Scott look exactly like Josh Hellman? And they're not the same. Like, they're not even related or anything, but they look exactly the same.
They do. They could be brothers for sure.
Yes. Okay, good. Thank you for helping me with this very difficult
No, they
time
could
in my
definitely
life.
be brothers. It's the eyebrow shape. It's their eyebrow and nose shape.
Yeah, they have very sharp features. They both have very sharp
No, they
facial
could definitely,
features. Yeah.
I would agree with you, friend. They look like they could be related.
Thank you. Okay, now
you're
that
not crazy.
now that I've my spirit is at rest, now we can move on to the next the next one.
Okay, well, you go ahead and pick, since I spent a lot of time talking shit about this movie.
Okay, I need to talk about this one because it's one of those movies. It's got this. I have this weird relationship with The Last Witch Hunter. It's Vin Diesel.
Which is a very random movie.
It's a very random, very weird movie to have an odd relationship with, but it came out in 2015. It's Vin Diesel, and the basic story is that he was with some, like, I guess some maybe Vikings back in ye olden times, and they were hunting this witch that had wreaked havoc upon them. They go into her lair, and in the ensuing fight, something happens where he gets cursed to live forever, or he gains some sort of power where he doesn't age and he doesn't die. And so it jumps ahead to modern times. And he is, he's this really kind of obviously wealthy guy, and he's got Elijah Wood and Michael Caine, who are there's this long line of succession of like butlers that he has, and there's it's like a family line where they've always served him, and so he goes and hunts witches, or it's like supernatural stuff, it's witches. It's I think there's like even kind of like fairies, and there's like a council of people, like an underground council that kind of keeps track of these kinds of things. So it's this the thing about the movie is that it's obviously attempting to start like a franchise, right? There's this whole world that's introduced. And the thing that I love about his character is, and first things first, like Vin Diesel is obviously a gigantic nerd. Like he has this kind of huge tough guy persona. And like, you know, he's got the Fast and Furious movies, which apparently will never end. So he's got fat cash and he can go
he's got triple X.
Yeah, he's got triple X, you know, he's got fat triple X cash. But, he's obviously a huge nerd because he does these projects like Bloodshot and The Last Witch Hunter and all these like really high fantasy sci-fi stuff that he's obviously a fan of, Babylon AD. And they don't always work out, but I really appreciate how he keeps going for it. And I wish that The Last Witch Hunter had done better because his character, they do such a good job of creating the lore about what he does. You know what I mean? Like it, you know, like a police officer or an investigator or anybody that's really good at their job, you can tell that they're good at their job by how they conduct themselves and the things that they do and stuff. And in the movie, they take time to show that with his character. Like there's little things that like I think they had to like discover something. There was something in a room, like an aura that he had to discover. So he has this like old paper, he lights it on fire, he kind of waves it around and that kind of flutters around and then he's got like investigating. So there's all these really cool little lore type things and skill things that he does. Like he's very competent and good at his job. And that's like the best part of the movie. The movie itself is not good. Like it's, and I think the biggest problem is I'm looking at let's see, what's the runtime? It's 1 hour and 46 minutes. And obviously this movie started out being like over 3 hours long because if you look at the editing and the choices that they make and the cuts they make,
they had to make some decisions.
They had to make some decisions. They must have had a lot of stuff with his family because he used to be like a Viking, like back in the day, like 1400s or whatever. And then the final fight scene, he goes into this cavern and there's like this giant CGI beast and it's ridiculous and it sucks. I'm like, I just want to know. I want to know. I've looked online. Nobody ever talked about it because obviously the movie sucked and nobody talks about it anymore. But I want to know like if there was like a 3-hour director's cut for this movie to where like it was just this fat, big, like Lord of the Rings style epic story. And then they're like, no, studio, we got to cut it down by committee, blah, blah, blah. All these creative decisions were made. And then it ended up being the kind of 1 hour and 46 minute long schlocky kind of movie that it was. But I just haven't been able to stop thinking about it since then, you know, because I feel bad. I feel bad for Vin Diesel.
It has haunted me since it came out.
Really, I just have so much empathy for him because, you know, he obviously takes these chances on these properties that he's like, yes, this is going to be good. But maybe he doesn't have enough creative control, or maybe he, you know, maybe the scripts aren't that good. You know, I don't know. But I really enjoyed his character in this movie, even though the movie itself is not good. And someday maybe we can have Vin Diesel on the podcast and he can show us the 3-hour long director's cut that he has in his basement somewhere for The Last Witch Hunter. But in line with kind of this whole theme of being like a hunter and having like a skill set, they do a really good job of being very specific about his skill set. And you can see it. You're like, oh, this guy he's been around for hundreds of years. He knows his stuff. He knows what he's doing. And I guess I heard they were working on a sequel, like he wants to do a sequel. So maybe he'll get his wish ultimately in the end. But yeah, I just had to say that, man. I just had to share my feelings, very strong, strange feelings about this really, really not very good film. But yeah, it kind of hit me. That's how it hit me.
Well, I'm glad it hit you, man, because I think I have seen this movie, but it's just like you said in the beginning. It's one of those movies that just like, you know, it just came out.
Yeah.
It's like a Percy Jackson, or it's like
came and went.
You know, what's the Vampire's Apprentice or something like that.
Yeah, the Vampire's Apprentice, which somebody said that, Cirque du Freak, the Vampire's Apprentice.
Circus du Freak. It's just some, you know, it's a weird, you know, just super obscure movie that just came out and just, you know, its reputation died. Like people don't talk about it. It just came out and then that's it. I think like one of the first ever, like, I guess, adaptations, or one of the first movies that ever came out that kind of highlighted this theme was The Most Dangerous Game, based off the book.
Based off a short, I've read the short story. I don't know if it was a full novel, but I remember in school,
it's a short
grade
story.
school.
Because I remember it, I read it in middle school.
Okay, we both, the big thick book with all the short stories in it? Yeah, okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's
So
funny.
actually, it's an easy watch. It came out in 1932, so it's black and gray. But have you seen the film?
No, I've read the book. I didn't know there was a film made in the
There
early
is a
30s
film,
about
and
it.
it's actually a really easy watch because it's only an hour and 3 minutes long. And it's it's funny. I respect like the old school, I guess like the true movie magic of back then, because they didn't have special effects. Like all the actors, they needed to, actually fully commit to stuff because like there was no like, you couldn't, put special effects in or whatnot. So all like the fight sequences or like say they were like in the beginning of the short story, for those that aren't familiar, there's like a ship and it sinks because it hits the ground and like everybody on board dies except for one guy. But like when the ship is sinking, like they're like people are legit like rolling around in the boat, like falling on top of each other, and it's just one single shot because they can't like, at that point, like handheld cameras were like they're big, they're bulky. You couldn't like sprint through the jungle with people or like follow them and do like one shots. It was just like one big shot of like the scene, and they just pretty much put the camera on a tilt to make it look like the boat was going back and forth, and people just started rolling. So I'm like, oh my God, I'm surprised nobody got hurt.
Yeah.
Which,
Well. Shopping for a car?
Yep, Carvana made financing a car as smooth as can be.
Oh, yeah?
I got pre-qualified instantly and had real terms personalized just for me.
Doesn't get much smoother than that.
Well, I got to browse thousands of car options on Carvana, all within my budget.
Doesn't get much smoother than that.
It does. I actually wanted a car that seemed out of my range, but I was able to add a cosigner and found my dream car.
It doesn't get much.
Oh, it gets smoother. It's getting delivered tomorrow.
Visit Carvana.com or download the app to get pre-qualified today. Introducing Carvana Value Tracker, where you can track your car's value over time and learn what's driving it. It might make you excited.
Whoa, didn't know my car was valued this high.
It might make you nervous.
Uh-oh, market's flooded. My car's value just dipped 2.3%.
It might make you optimistic.
Our low mileage is paying off. Our value's up.
And it might make you realistic.
Car prices haven't gone up in a couple weeks. Maybe it's time to sell.
But it will definitely make you an expert on your car's value. Carvana Value Tracker. Visit Carvana.com to start tracking your car's value today.
I don't know if they didn't, because like there's legit dudes like flipping and kicking each other and whatnot.
We don't know what the laws were for labor laws back then. Maybe they didn't.
Yeah.
Like they could like break horses' legs and have people hurt themselves. Like, sorry, you just don't come into work tomorrow.
Yeah, like to take the day off, recover and come
This
back the next day.
experimental art form called filmmaking.
Yeah, but pretty much the movie takes place. I think they're in the Caspian Sea, and like they're going. One of the guys is a big hunter, and there's a rich doctor on board who doesn't hunt, and they're having conversations, and they're like, what's very interesting is, those like they're talking about the animals. They're like those who hunt for survival are labeled as savages, but we who hunt for sport are civilized men. And it's like, so there's like, they pose a lot of moral questions, but pretty much their boat goes down. Also, I love the fact that it's it's in the 30s. So like the doctor's like, I have a little bit of nerves because I don't know what's going on. And they're just like, oh, just drink some whiskey. And they're all like, so he gives them a bottle of scotch or a shot of scotch. And everyone's like, oh, I think I have nerves too. Can I have some of that? Blah, 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 blah. Yeah. And, but anyways, the ship goes down. One guy survives, and he like basically swims to shore, finds a fortress, and it's owned by this like count guy. And they keep mentioning the Cossacks, so I know they're like near Russia. So like and obviously it's the 30s, so they're not very inclusive in their verbiage, and how they speak isn't like what it is now. So like this guy answers the door, and he's like, I just had a crash. It was quite incredible. Do you not understand what I'm? And there's just this guy just staring at him. And he's like, can you not understand me? And like the count comes out and he's like, that is Ivan. He is what we call dumb and doesn't understand. And you're like, oh, okay. So this guy's, he's quote unquote dumb, but it means a little bit more than that. But pretty much this count guy, he has a couple other survivors, and you come to find out that like there's markers on the island to keep boats from running aground, but he shifted them over so that they would start crashing and landing on his island, so that they would come. He'd offer them sanctuary, good meals, get them in great shape. But then he would basically, he was a hunter, but he got very bored of hunting because he's a very intellectual, like higher thinker. And he's like, I switched to using a more primitive style of bow. And, you know, it was great. And I prefer hunting with bow because it puts me closer to the animal. But he's like, there's reached a point to where like I realized that I need to hunt a different type of animal. And it turns out that like he's like, I hunt the most dangerous of game, and turns out to be other people. So he basically takes the people that wash up, and he gives them like 12 hours to escape them. And if they manage to make it to sunrise, they live. But he's like, but I've never lost this game. And he basically, the hunter goes off, and there's, you know, obviously since it's the 30s, a love affair kind of, you know, there's a beautiful female that's super helpless and can't do anything. And she just screams and, you know, fights, and she can't do anything for herself because she's a woman. Classic 90s or classic 30s filmmaking. But he's like basically running through the jungle trying to, you know, escape this guy. And he, you know, falls off this waterfall in this big like scene where he's fighting this dog, and, you know, the Count shoots him, what you think, and it turns out the Count shot the dog, and the Count thought he won the game. And he comes back, and he's like, he's like, oh, congratulations, you passed. But the guy's like, you just tried to kill me, so I'm going to murder you. And there's this big fight scene. And this is where I go back to like the special effects. Cause like they're legit duking it out. Cause they can't like, you know, they can't pull punches. And yeah, he ends up killing the Count, and he gets eaten by his own dog. But, you know, for 1932, or what was it? Yeah, 1932, I thought it was an entertaining movie. I was like captivated by it and like sucked in. But I feel like they all use the same soundtrack. They're always like, dun, 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 dun.
Yeah.
Yeah, they all use the same music. It's crazy.
That's awesome, man. Well, you can, I kind of did a little quick research. You can see it. The full length feature film is on YouTube if you want to watch it.
Yeah, it's all free too. It's like on it's on Amazon Prime. It's available on a lot of streaming platforms for free. And like I said, it's a really easy watch. It's only an hour, but it's pretty entertaining.
Nice, man. Well, that's a good one, man. I appreciate that's like old school. You can see what I like is tracking the movement of, you know, we'll see a movie and we're like, that's pretty original. But then we'll realize that it's like one in the long line of succession of movies that are kind of similar to it. It's nice to go back and kind of find where the original concept came from.
Because, the roots.
Yeah, because usually it has like a really good message. And I feel like this whole like man hunting man theme they've done a pretty good job of kind of keeping that idea going and playing with it and new ideas and stuff. But I want to talk about one before we run out of time. I know we're kind of getting there, but I want to talk about one more that this is my public service announcement for this episode. But if you guys haven't seen either one of two Vampire Hunter D anime movies, then you need to. One's from 1985, classic anime style, and the other one's called Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust. It came out in the year 2000, and this is like one of the classic ideas of like kind of in the vein of Blade, where Vampire Hunter D, he's only known as D. That's his name. And in the first movie, there's, you know, a town that's beset upon by this evil vampire. He's very powerful, and they don't know what to do. And he comes into town, and he starts laying waste to all the bad dudes, all the kind of evil creatures and stuff. And finally he ends up facing the main vampire who's in this castle and defeating him. And then you come to find out that Vampire Hunter D himself is a vampire, but he is a vampire who is kind of ashamed of his lineage. He's actually of the lineage of like the original Count Dracula, like way back in the day. Like the movie takes place in a distant kind of post-apocalyptic blasted lands type future where humanity is kind of just back to like a rural kind of farmlands kind of setting, but there's also like high technology around, almost like a steampunk kind of thing. But anyway, he has been living for thousands of years, and all he does is he hunts other vampires. And then the second one's even better. The animation style in both is actually pretty original. But the second one, Bloodlust, the reason I mention it in this context is there is a team of hunters that he comes across, and they have this cool like armored mobile home, you know, that they it's like a double long tractor trailer kind of thing that they roll around in, and it's like up armored, and they all have their own little special kind of like abilities. Like one dude, he's got like a wrist crossbow launcher they can fire like rapid fire with like silver arrows to take out vampires, and he's got a brother with him, and the coolest guy. They come up with meet up with Vampire Hunter D or with D. The coolest guy in that he's like really sickly and he's in the back. He's always like in bed and he's always like looking like he's sick and like emaciated. But his ability is that he can inject himself. He injects himself with a sedative, and while he's under, he can astral project his inner spirit. And his inner spirit's like this awesome weapon. It's like firing like laser beams everywhere and like blowing stuff up. It's super powerful, but like every time he does it, he's like he gets weaker. So like he can only use it a set number of times before he's just gonna die. So like his physical body is weak, but his inner like astral projected spirit is this awesome weapon that's like almost unstoppable. And the only way they can stop him is like they're after D at one point. He goes off by himself and they don't think that he's playing the game very well, so they go after him and they attack him with this thing, and he has a sword that can cut even spirits, like astrals, project like spirits, and so he defeats the guy that way. And the dude like almost has like a heart attack and dies because that's like not a good way to get snapped back into your body. But that's that I've always remember that ability. And if I ever am a part of like some sort of creative process where we get to make like a movie with like a team, that's like such a cool concept. Like what we were talking about with the, like having an ability, like the Super Soldier episode, we talk about having an ability, but then there's also a consequence to it, you know? Yeah. Like he has this awesome, powerful, almost unstoppable type weapon, but every time he uses it, he gets a little bit weaker. And one of these days, he actually
he'll kill himself using his power.
And spoilers for everybody, he ends up doing that in the end in order to save or to kind of like take out somebody in his team gets like taken over. And in order to stop him, he ends up like overloading himself psychically and blowing up his own astral projection. And then as a result, he has like a heart attack and dies. But it's super cool. If you guys like anime and you want some classic ones, Vampire Hunter D, watch out. There's a couple boobs in it. All right. You gotta be careful, guys. Boobs. Get your mom's permission.
Nothing wrong with anime boobs.
Before you watch it. But then Vampire Hunter D, Bloodlust is also, they're both solid films, which in the line of anime, there's a lot of garbage out there, but there's also, these ones are like stand kind of head and shoulders above the rest. Very dark, very bloody. There's like exploding heads and lots of gore.
That's cool.
So, but yeah, I just wanted to get that in there because it fits right in with the theme of like specialized hunters, and especially in Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust, there's that team that he meets up with, and I'm like, oh, that's like, I love that. I love that specialization.
That is cool. All right. Well, quick honorable mentions from me. I know we said we'll talk about this, but we ran out of time. The Running Man, 1987, Arnold Schwarzenegger. This is classic 80s action. Plus, you know, I'm a big fan of like different character designs and all the stalkers that are in it. Like, you know, you have like Sub-Zero, who's this super weird, like whoever came up with these characters are nuts. Sub-Zero is a Japanese guy that says Banzai, but he's an ice hockey player with like a giant, like sword hockey stick. And then obviously Arnold Schwarzenegger says that one-liner is like, here's Sub-Zero, now Plane Zero.
So good.
And it like doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense, but you're like, okay. And then they just run away in their little onesies, sponsored by Adidas. Yep. But yeah, Running Man's great about like, you know, being hunted. And I like Dynamo. He's such a piece of shit.
Yeah, he's such a sleazebag, and
he's such a sleazebag, and he wears tighty whities. Yeah. I'm so glad he gets electrocuted. But anyway, Sub-Zero. Running Man, honorable mention, and then finally honorable mention from me is if you're a fan. We don't really talk about like horror too much, but 31 from 2016. It's a Rob Zombie film, and if you like really like dark and you know really just fucked up type of cinema, it's the perfect thing. Basically there's these carnies and they get kidnapped and put in this pretty much kind of prison thing, and there's these high elitists that once a year meet and place bets on who they think will make it and survive. And basically out of all these, you know, carnies, they get there's these characters that are just straight out of Rob Zombie's brain. Like, so you know they're just demented and sick and twisted, and they basically one at a time, like they get just like in The Running Man. It's pretty much like one stalker or one character goes after them and tries to kill them all. So like for example, one of the first waves of like guys that they're running from, he's a little person, but he's dressed as Adolf Hitler, and he speaks Spanish. He only speaks Spanish.
Oh my gosh.
and he like basically runs around and tries to like basically, I think he has like a baseball bat or an axe or something, and he like tries to murder them. But there's just, that's just an example of one of the kooky characters that, comes out of the brain of Rob Zombie. But that's my real quick 31. Like I said, if you like horror and like demented cinema, it's a really entertaining movie.
Nice, man. Nice. Good honorable mentions. My honorable mentions for this episode are Hellboy 1 and 2, the Guillermo del Toro series. I'm sorry that he never got to make a third one. I guess he wanted to, but it never happened. But the whole idea of the Bureau of Paranormal Investigations that he's a part of. Yeah, they hunt him down, and they always have the lore, like Abe Sapien is there. He brings up the lore. They study. They know what they're up against. They've got special weapons that they break out. Big Baby, the shoe tying glasses, especially in the second one, they go really deep into the lore, going into the troll market and all that kind of stuff. I really appreciate how deep they get in it. And that's that perfect example of that internal consistency, because you totally get immersed in the world of Hellboy 1 and 2. Hellboy 2019, David Harbour version, not a big fan of. It was kind of a mess. I'm guessing that the editors got a hold of it, or the executives got a hold of it and cut it up and made it really confusing and weird and not comprehensible. And then also, the ultimate monster hunter, besides classically Van Helsing, but all the Belmont family from the Castlevania franchise, man. Any of the Castlevania games, you are a monster hunter, and you're fighting anywhere from the classic monsters to crazy out there monsters when you're Alucard in Symphony of the Night, which is one of my favorite games of all time. But Castlevania series gets my other honorable.
All right, so yeah, man, this list was good. There's, really good. On the subject of hunting, there's a lot of pop culture that kind of, has ingrained themselves in this subject. All the way back, like we talked about, The Most Dangerous Game in 1932, and up until today, with newer things like The Hunt and the Witcher series, like we mentioned, and all these different type of shows and TV. Oh, hey, cat. But yeah, no, it's easy pickings in a way.
Yeah, we could definitely a lot of stuff we've been doing lately. I feel like we just don't have enough time to get to all of it, but we could definitely do a part 2 to this one. Being on a special elite team trained specifically to kill a certain creature or creatures is always a fun idea to play with.
Yeah, absolutely. So this, we usually do our game, but before we do our game, we have a quick question from Jason McCormick via our email. He wants to know, have you guys ever came across any wild creatures on a mission or during your service?
It's interesting.
Let's see. Now I'm trying to go back, in the last 8 years.
Something besides the camel spider that I saw on base once.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of, because I've told the story of the rattlesnake I can give you some very vague context of a creature I encountered very recently. So I was in Colombia doing something, and we were helocasting into a pond that they had on a police force's basically training compound. And we helocasted into the water, and we're picked up by Zodiacs, and it was really fun. We're doing maneuvers on the boat and whatnot, and then we all just decided to jump back in the water and start swimming around. But before we got on the helicopter, we heard on the radio that they've spotted a 3-meter long crocodile in the pond, and I'm like, they're trying to scare me. There's no crocodiles here. Come on. But anyways, we were in the water and we're swimming around having a good time after the helocast, and I start feeling these bubbles underneath me. And I'm like, does anybody feel that? Can anybody feel these bubbles, on your feet? And I'm wearing boots and I can distinctly feel giant air bubbles hitting my feet. And everyone's like, oh yeah, it's probably just the mud shifting from all the water moving around. So you're probably good. So anyways, we go back to the land and we're hanging out there. I'm talking to one of the guys, and out of the corner of my eye, I see this little head pop up out of the water, and I look over, and it's a caiman. And this pond isn't big at all. It's a very small pond. I just see, obviously it's not 3 meters long. And maybe it was about 3 or 4 feet long. Yeah. But I'm like, oh my God, there was a caiman. Like it was probably right next to me, and I had no idea.
Man, that's a big nope for me, man. You're not going to catch me living or being anywhere in like a hot, swampy, humid climate like Florida or anywhere else south of there. So, because those things freak me out, man.
Yeah, no, gators are scary, dude.
They're like ancient, man. They've been around forever.
Yeah,
dude. It's like
they're dinosaurs.
Yeah. Oh, that's wild. I don't really have any wild. I'm lucky, I guess. I haven't had any like wild animal encounters or strange creatures or anything like that. The camel spider in Iraq story is about as hairy as it gets for me.
And that's very hairy.
That's pretty hairy.
I would have lost my shit, dude. I hate like big spiders. I hate bugs. I'm not a fan of bugs.
Not a fan either. No, not a fan. I think it was just the perfect context for me to not freak out because it was like late at night and it was like 15, 20 feet away. And it just walked. It didn't even stop to like look at us or anything. It was just walking. And that just kind of gave me this impression. It was just doing its thing, man. It's just a spider, you know. So yeah, that's
okay. I mean, that story is plenty scary enough, I think. And I hate when you tell it because I think about it and then it gives me the heebie-jeebies. So hopefully, Jason, that answers your question, man. Thank you. If you guys have any other questions, you know where to get us. You can send us an Instagram message at PCFM Podcast or hit our email at pcfmpodcast@gmail.com or on our Patreon. Send us a message to all our loyal patrons, either on Patreon or in our Discord. We would love to feature it on an episode. But we're going to play a game, and it's a little bit different, right? We're talking about, like, specialized teams to go off and hunt, some either people, monsters, beasts, what have you. But one thing we are very interested in is, what type of skills we would want on our team. So I think, three? You want to do, like, 3 or 4 skills per team, Izzy?
Yeah, I thought this would be like a fun thing to do. Like, what would you want to? What would you think would be a wild creature to hunt? And then how would you formulate your team? You know what I mean? Like, I always love. I don't know. I like magic stuff, so I would love to have like a Gauntlet style. Remember the arcade game Gauntlet? You know. You don't remember Gauntlet? Oh.
No, I don't remember.
It's like
Gauntlet.
An 80s arcade game, and then they came out with a reboot. It's basically 4 players. You can choose from a warrior, a Valkyrie, a wizard, or a thief, I think. And you just battle endless waves of monsters going down and down into almost like Diablo. Do you ever play Diablo? Diablo's kind of in the vein of those kinds of things. So I would love to be like the leader of an elite supernatural fighting force, but in an ancient times,
okay, so let's go hunt a dragon.
We're
hunting a dragon in ancient times, so modern technology is out of the question. Technology. Pick 3 people to be on your team. So we'll have 4-man teams, right?
Teams.
So 3 specific types of people.
3 specialties.
3 specialties in medieval times.
All right, well, I definitely gotta have I think I'm if I could choose to combine attributes like a fast, strong, like a point man. You know what I mean? Somebody that is blazing the trail. Somebody that's a good stand-up fighter. Now that I'm thinking about it, like a dragon. Dragons are huge. You know what I mean? And they can breathe fire, so they have a ranged attack. So let me start over. I'd want to have I got to have a brain, right? I got to have a brainy character, somebody who knows the lore, somebody who's good on their feet, maybe that's my wizard type person. They're not very physically strong, but they know their stuff and they can come up with solutions on the fly. You know what I mean? I feel like I'm thinking a team of 4, you know what I mean? I would love to have.
You don't classify yourself as anything?
Well, I'm thinking. I suppose if I was going to classify myself as anything, it would be basically like the leader, the coordinator, the head. It comes up with the plan. I could be a competent fighter. I feel like we're going to use a lot of ranged attacks, especially. But I might even go with something like somebody who's a good an engineer type, like explosives. Maybe they worked in ye old fireworks establishments, and now
a Chinese man,
a Chinaman. Yeah, I get a Chinaman. And then their podcast was canceled.
But Chinese alchemist. They're
alchemist.
Alchemist.
There you go. Just an alchemist. Yeah. We don't have to discriminate. Not all alchemists have to be Chinese.
They invented black powder.
They invented black powder. Yeah, they did. But I feel like in this situation, you're not going to do a stand-up fight with a dragon. So I would want to like lure him into an area, like a choke point, like a valley, maybe somewhere. We get the, we have our brain, we have our explosives expert, and then I don't know if it would be like an 18 Charlie where he'd be an explosives expert and like somebody who's good at architecture and engineering. Because I don't, want to like maybe build some sort of like traps, like we're trying to like capture him, and then maybe like, I don't know if we're going to blow him up, drop a rock on him, use a spell. So I'd want to have somebody explosive, somebody good at engineering, traps, very survivalist kind of thing, and then a brain, Because when it comes to like a dragon, like you don't want to get up close to a dragon. He's got strength, he's got the long reach, and he's got range with the fire breathing or acid or whatever kind of stuff that they breathe. Maybe it's D&D. I don't know. Maybe he's breathing out like acid tar.
You are analyzing.
I'm
analyzing.
Right now. So,
Pick the team.
Okay.
Pick the team,
all
man.
right. Okay, listen, I got
fire breathing dragon.
I'm the leader, the man with the plan. All right. Also pretty good in the fight. I got my brain, my wizard, I got my explosives expert, and I got my survival expert. I'm going to put the engineering stuff in the survival category. Can make and create things, good at understanding terrain and coming up with help me to come up with a plan to bring this monster into a choke point and drop a rock on its head.
Okay. There you go.
What about you? What are you hunting? What's your team?
All right, so same scenario, right? Fire-breathing dragon.
Okay, fire-breathing dragon.
So I would, I'm assuming if I was alive back then, based off the experience I have now, I would be more of a warrior class. Okay. So like close range, big swords, big axes, hammers, what have you. So I would consider myself the warrior class. So you have me, warrior class, and then I would want, obviously, like you said, would be very intelligent to have some sort of ranged class. But my ranged class would fall into the hunter category. Speaking of the just the overall theme of the episode, because hunters, typically have ranged weapons, whether it be muskets or bow and arrows.
Okay.
But they're also, very skilled at tracking and then building traps, tracking and trapping as well, just because that's the skill set. So I'd have a hunter as my second. My third, I would want, I think, I would want someone fast and quick and who could sneak around just in case. So I would want like a thief class or like a rogue class.
Yeah.
So somebody that's really nimble, someone that's, almost like a trickster. Because in a lot of the, dragon lore, if they're sleeping or we needed to get something in order, maybe the dragon has a weakness that it's protecting or guarding.
Yeah.
Just like in The Hobbit, right? They need a thief in order to sneak in there and get what they need. So I'd have like a thief class or a rogue class in order to navigate around and who's also still skilled at combat, close hand-to-hand combat.
Sure.
So you have me, the warrior class, got a hunter class, a rogue class. And now, just in case, I'd want some sort of magic, but more magic, just because, it's how hard is it to find a wizard back then? I don't know.
I
they're
think
running around.
I feel like it's not a matter of finding a wizard; it's a matter of the quality of wizard that you're looking for. Like you probably have
I'm looking
dime store wizards, but then you got your high end wizards.
Yeah, I would love a high end one. That'd be great. But now I'm like thinking because you have. It's almost like I'm building a raid in World of Warcraft where you have like a tank class,
sure,
and then you have like DPS, and then what else do you need? You need healers, right?
Yep.
So I'm thinking of like some sort of magic-based character, but that's very strong in healing. So just in case we get injured, damaged by the fire, they're able to heal us and take care of us, but also are skilled in, offensive magic as well. So I think more like a healer cast. I can also kind of do, throw some lightning bolts or one or two like zippity zap, and then I come over and burn. They're like wow, 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 wow with their hands, and I'm healed.
Like that's
that would be kind of my team.
That's cool, man. I feel like it's pretty well rounded. You've obviously either gone on raids before or thought about this at great length. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, those are our teams, folks. Let us know. Send us an email what you would build if you were in charge of putting together a fantasy team to hunt down a fire-breathing dragon. Just keep it simple. Don't overanalyze it like Izzy did.
Listen, your life depends on it, okay?
Your life depends on it, absolutely. But we really hope you enjoyed this episode. Izzy, you got stuff?
Thanks, everybody. We appreciate you joining us on this episode. If you want to enjoy more episodes and other great content like our live streams every month, join us on Patreon. Other than that,
cue music.
what's going on, everybody? You just listened to the free version of the PCFM podcast. If you want full-length versions of podcast episodes, plus much more, head on over to our Patreon page at patreon.com/PCFM podcast.
That is right, Israel. If you want access to this full episode, you have to subscribe to the Fuzzy Private tier, which is our cheapest tier on Patreon at $5 a month. But if you are interested in a little bit more, we also have the Salty Sergeant tier at $8 a month and the Lifer tier at $12 a month. So hopefully we will see you there, PCFM family. Cue music.
Well. Shopping for a car?
Yep, Carvana made financing a car as smooth as can be.
Oh, yeah?
I got pre-qualified instantly and had real terms personalized just for me.
Doesn't get much smoother than that.
Well, I got to browse thousands of car options on Carvana, all within my budget.
Doesn't get much smoother than that.
It does. I actually wanted a car that seemed out of my range, but I was able to add a cosigner and found my dream car.
It doesn't get much...
Oh, it gets smoother. It's getting delivered tomorrow.
Visit Carvana.com or download the app to get pre-qualified today. Introducing Carvana Value Tracker, where you can track your car's value over time and learn what's driving it. It might make you excited.
Whoa, didn't know my car was valued this high.
It might make you nervous.
Uh-oh, market's flooded. My car's value just dipped 2.3%.
It might make you optimistic.
Our low mileage is paying off. Our value's up.
And it might make you realistic.
Car prices haven't gone up in a couple weeks. Maybe it's time to sell.
But it will definitely make you an expert on your car's value. Carvana Value Tracker. Visit Carvana.com to start tracking your car's value today.